What's going on, everybody? C4 here doing a quick player grades video. It's New Year's, I got shit to do, but I figured I'd pop in for about 10 minutes or so to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles as they taste defeat in the regular season finale, 6-0 against the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys moved to 9-7. Philly moves to 13-3. We had an opportunity to tie the best record in franchise history. Had an opportunity to go undefeated at home, and clearly that was never really in the keys. The fact that I would say 75% of this game was Dallas Cowboys starters going up against Philadelphia Eagles second and third stringers. It was pretty much a preseason game. It still would have been nice to win. I'm not going to lie. I was on the edge of my seat hoping, praying during this incredibly boring game that this was really, really terrible. But the fact that Dallas was only able to put up 6 points with Dak Prescott, Dez Bryant, Jason Witten, Ezekiel Elliott, and Sean Lee, the great Sean Lee, 6 points on the Eagles' backups is not pretty. Like, this is actually more of like an embarrassing game. It's a win for Dallas, but this is more of an embarrassing. Like, I'd feel like if you're a Cowboys fan, you would definitely feel much worse right now than the Eagles do about the result of this game. I think Eagle fans still are a little upset about the uncertainty at the quarterback spot. But let's jump into the player grades first, and then we will talk a little miscellaneous. So, looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, Nate Sudfeld went 19 of 23 for 142 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Nick Foles went 4 of 11, 39 yards, and a terrible interception. Nate Sudfeld, according to FoxSports.com, had a 92 QBR, which is what Skip Bayless likes to refer to when he talks about quarterbacks. Dak Prescott had an 85. So Nate Sudfeld had a better QBR than Dak Prescott. Okay. I think you got to go with Sudfeld. I know it's completely maybe out of character of me, because I usually like to go with the more realistic, sensible option. But Nick Foles didn't come in as, like, you know, the savior. We thought he did. We thought we were going to get 27-2 Nick Foles. We bought into the 4 touchdowns, no picks against the Giants. But Nick Foles against the Raiders was horrific. Nick Foles today was very bad. I don't understand, like, what clout does Nick Foles have with his current regime that he's, like, no matter how bad he plays, he's still going to be our starter. Like, he's getting that QB1 treatment. Like, if Tom Brady had a couple bad games, you're no way in hell ever going to revert to the back, like, the second stringer or anything like that. But Nick Foles is our backup, and he's playing very, very bad. And this is, like, unlike a preseason game, right? Like, it was not like Nick Foles came in against the starters, played bad, and then Nate Sudfeld came in against, you know, the Cowboys' second and third stringers and looked better. This was the same defense playing for the Dallas Cowboys. Sean Lee was making tackles on the friggin', like, with 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Nate Sudfeld going up against the exact same Cowboys defense, which is not great. They have, you know, good, pass rush. I guess front seven's pretty solid. But Nate Sudfeld looked better against the same players that Nick Foles was going out, except Nate Sudfeld was playing with inferior talent. There was no Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz, starting running backs. All the offensive line was gone. No Lane Johnson, which is the only bad thing you could take away from this game about Nate Sudfeld is that he didn't really read the blitz well, but it didn't help that everyone's starting on the Will Beatty, who's never took a snap for the Philadelphia Eagles in his life. We didn't have one single starter on the offensive line. So I think that's kind of an injustice. I think that Nate Sudfeld, if the starters were playing as bad as they did with Nick Foles, I think that if the starters executed a drive or two, if they got a touchdown, a field goal, 2 field goals, something like that, yeah, pull the starters out. But the fact that the starters looked horrific, I say you have, like, it's unfair to not see what Nate Sudfeld looks with the starters going into our playoff matchup. Right now, we have no idea. Right now, let's be honest, they're going with Nick Foles. Nick Foles is going to be the starter. I think that's a bad decision, to be completely honest with you. Knowing what we know now, I mean, I guess you kind of have to go with Foles because we don't know what Sudfeld looks like, but we had the opportunity. Not one starter on this team should have came out of that game, because right now we're going into the playoffs limping incredibly bad. It's embarrassing when you look around the NFL right now. Everyone's trying to, like, okay, how can we play Philly in the playoffs? They think we're going to be an absolute bye, you know, and I think Nate Sudfeld playing with the starters would have at least given us some hope. We would have known that Nick Foles, yeah, Sudfeld is, you know, he's like looking like a QB3. We got to go with Nick Foles, and hopefully he can turn it around. We don't know that. We now just have to go with, all right, Foles has sucked, but they didn't want to give an opportunity to Nate Sudfeld to make any playing time or get any good tape on or any good reps with the starters in actual game action. So they pretty much, you know, threw in the towel. And I think, like I said, grave mistake by Doug Pearson. Doug Pearson probably will still win Coach of the Year, I think, with the 13-3. They'll probably give the nod to him over McVay. That was a bad coaching decision because Nick Foles was terrible. Absolutely terrible. They had the one bad drop from Torrey Smith. Okay. But other than that, Nick Foles did absolutely nothing. Looked like the exact same Nick Foles that we saw be horrific against the Oakland Raiders. So quarterbacks, Nate Sudfeld, he's getting a B. Maybe a B minus. I'll say give him a B, man. He had that 22-yard run, too. That looked very, very impressive. Foles getting an F. That was horrific. The interception was horrific. That is the interception I would have expected Nate Sudfeld to make. A rookie mistake trying to make something when nothing's there. Not the mistake that Nick Foles would make, knowing that Nick Foles, that's his positive. He might not be playing well, but the only advantage Nick Foles has over any quarterback we have right now is that he should know the offense well enough not to turn the ball over. He should protect the football. We might not be able to move it, but if we don't turn it over, you assume that a great defense and a solid run game would help us out there. But oh my God, man. Horrible. Look at the running attack. LeGarrette Blount had 37 yards. Sudfeld had a 22 scamper. Outside of that, the run game was non-existent. We only ran the ball 18 times versus, a very unbalanced attack. LeGarrette Blount did get an incentive bonus, I guess, from his deal, so that's good for him. I mean, LeGarrette Blount, outside of the drive killers, outside of, like, the really frustrating rotation that they have with, I hate Deuce Staley. Everyone knows I hate Deuce Staley. Running backs, they didn't look good. Running backs were getting a C minus. Wide receivers, Mac Hollins had 3 catches for 25 yards, 3 catches, 24 for Smallwood, 2 for 24 for Ertz, 3 for 23 for Johns. I mean, it's all backups, man. Alshon Jeffrey. Hey, we saw a Nick Foles completion to Alshon Jeffrey. I guess the only positives, man, is Hollins had a bad drop for Nate Sudfeld that probably would have went for 20 yards, give or take. I still think Hollins definitely gives us flexibility in terms of freeing up cap. I believe Torrey Smith coming back. Not bringing Torrey Smith back would give us $5 million in cap space, which would be absolutely huge for renegotiating and trying to get Nigel Bradham to return. I definitely think Mac Hollins can do every single thing, if not better, than what Torrey Smith currently does for the wide receivers. The wide receivers, I can't really hold it against them. It was just the game plan. It was an ugly game. I gave the wide receivers just a C. Wasn't impressive or anything. Wasn't really overly negative. Look at the defense. Jalen Watkins led the team with 7 tackles. We got 4 tackles. Chris Long, 5 from Najee Good, who actually played pretty well. Rasul Douglas actually did not look super hot. The touchdown, man, it's like one of those things. Okay, we'll get through the grades because there's obviously some Eagle news we got to talk about. Rasul Douglas didn't look hot. Stephen Means Stephen Means is very underrated. He's definitely a guy that I like to have in the rotation. Ellerby looked meh. I think I'd probably rather Joe Walker than Ellerby, but Walker, I'm pretty sure, is on IR. Sidney Jones looked good. I did not see one bad play. Sidney Jones took a kind of an angle on Ezekiel Elliott once, but at least he was able to recover and push Zeke out of bounds. Other than that, man, quiet. Nothing went Sidney Jones' way. He was shut down. I'm not going to say that, oh my God, he's going to play in the playoff game or anything crazy like that, but he had a good game. If you're a cornerback and you don't have your name called, it's kind of like an offensive lineman a little bit. Like, obviously you want to see Sidney Jones get an interception. You want to see him have a big pass breakup and stuff like that. But as long as I didn't hear Sidney Jones' name called like outside of a tackle or two, I'm happy with that. That means that he did his job. He shut down whatever guy was on his side. I don't know if he was on Terrence Williams primarily, or a little bit of Dez Bryant. No, Rasul Douglas went Dez a little bit. But overall, man, defense played fine. Rasul Douglas played good for the most part, but that touchdown, man, comes back to the other point about our DC. The big rumor, defensive grade before we go into that. I'm going to give the defense B+. They kept us in this game, made it look ugly. They did their job. They held Zeke. Zeke did not finish with 1,000 yards of rushing on the season. I think he needed 120. He only got 103, so shout out to that. That's something that's, a little bit more a shot at the Dallas Cowboys. But so yeah, I give defense a B. But the worst thing about this defense performance is like it seems like as much as Jim Schwartz, I like Jim Schwartz. I think he's a solid DC, fringe great DC currently in the NFL climate, but he fails to make adjustments. Like what do you do? Bryce Butler is probably the second fastest wide receiver on the Dallas Cowboys. He's probably like right up there with Terrence Williams. If we're getting mad in terms, he's probably like 90-some speed, 91, 92 speed. I remember he was kind of more of a deep threat when he was on the Raiders, I believe is where he was. You put Rasul Douglas, who's not fast at all, in press coverage against a guy that's much quicker than him. What are you expecting with no safety help? Like, they kind of put Rasul Douglas out, hang over the dry there. He's the kind of guy, you match him up with the big body guy. You match him up with Dez Bryant, I'll be fine. He shut down Dez Bryant. What did Dez Bryant have? 3 catches for 20 yards. Yeah, that's what you want. But when it's a faster guy, you better put some help behind it because Rasul does not have lateral quickness. He doesn't have straight line speed. He's a bigger corner. What else are you gonna do? So that I really thought that touchdown that they got, which is I guess was the difference maker, is the only point scored in this game, was a bad play call from Jim Schwartz. He wanted to bring the house. He wanted to get the safeties involved. And yeah, it's the backups. We're nitpicking. But, I mean, that touchdown was on Rasul Douglas, but I think that better understanding your personnel, not always wanting to blitz, that's what made Jim Johnson, legendary Philadelphia Eagle DC, so great, is that he didn't always blitz. Or when he did blitz, he kind of knew the right times. And we had different corners back then, man. Leo Shepard and Sheldon Brown, they were different. But ultimately, man, I can't really hold that on them. But it comes back to, speaking of the defense, why I want to work into this, work our way from the defense all the way back to offense, is that Jim Schwartz is supposedly taking an interview with the New York Giants to become head coach during the bye week. Obviously, you don't like to see that stuff because it's a distraction. It's definitely an off-field distraction. You may need to bring into consideration, like, oh, is he fully invested in our playoff push, this and that, which we definitely need him to be, because if we have any chance of winning, we're going to need our defense to carry this really, really bad offense through the playoffs. But I mean, it's one of those things people are like, oh, ask me on Twitter, oh, do you feel bad, or you feel, this and that about Jim Schwartz potentially leaving. He's replaceable. He is not, like, out of all the other guys that we might lose. Flip, who is what's his name? De Filippo, the QB coach. Frank Reich, even. Dave Phipp, our special teams coach. I would all rather hold on to those guys than Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz is replaceable. You have seen enough games this year to go, you know what? Like, he's made some pretty bad calls at times. He's made some good calls. He made some gutsy calls. But I will say, more often than not, I feel like Jim Schwartz, a lot of judgment calls are a little shaky. I think he called, his defense played much better this year, but down the stretch, man, it just seemed like his unwillingness to adapt, to change the scheme, to maybe move things around, to help Jalen Mills out a little bit, chill out with the constant blitzing, adjusting to, big thing is how we played the Giants. The fact that we made no adjustments from the first to second game against the Giants. They just killed us with the slants the entire time. I was like, well, a really good DC, which is what Jim Schwartz can be, would have made that change. He wouldn't have got beat up like that. We were able to get the win, so I guess you kind of give him credit there. But I think the best thing, would I rather Jim Schwartz here? Yes. But I think ultimately he's replaceable. It's not like, oh my God, we lose Jim Schwartz, our defense is rebuilding next year. Jim Schwartz is 100% replaceable. I would much rather, like I said, you know what? Maybe Frank Reich. I'd rather Frank Reich get hired, and then we can make D. Filippo our offensive coordinator. To be personally honest with you guys, but ultimately, it is what it is. You're gonna have to deal with that. Anytime there's a good team, you're gonna lose potential backups, and we don't even know if he's gonna go. Personally, this is my gut. I would rather Spags. Steve Spagnuolo, who's the current coach there, I'd probably give him the job over Jim Schwartz in terms of a defensive mind. But if you had to ask me, is Jim Schwartz actually going to get the job? I'm going to say no, because it seems like the league now, you kind of want an offensive-minded coach. If you're getting a young quarterback, you want that offensive-minded coach in the future. That's kind of what you're seeing with the Bears. They're getting rid of John Fox. John Fox is, not a bad head coach. I don't think John Fox has done worse than he should be immediately fired, like top of the list and stuff like that. He's done all right. But with Mitchell Trubisky, you want that QB mind. You want the McVay. Hell, you even want a Doug Peterson, a quarterback-based guy, an offensive-based guy that'll help get the most out of your young quarterbacks. And the Giants are going to be reloading this year. It is time to move on from Eli Manning. He might still be on the roster. He might be a placeholder next season. But there's going to be, ideally, with their second pick or third pick or wherever they pick in the draft, the new quarterback there. And getting a Jim Schwartz, something like that, that's not going to help that guy develop. So it's becoming the mold of the league to get that offensive head coach that can help these new young quarterbacks. And that is exactly what the Giants are going to have. And that's what leads me to believe that we're not going to lose Jim Schwartz. I mean, what I would much rather have Jim Schwartz than lose him, because he is a good DC. But this year, some of the shaky performances, especially down the stretch, has made me believe that he is replaceable if he decides to leave. And then the last point that we're going to talk about in this grades video is the quarterback spot. The quarterback spot for the Philadelphia Eagles. What do they do going forward? Like I said, I'm not the big knee-jerker guy. I'm not C445 right now. I'm sober for now. It's obviously New Year's. We'll talk to me in a couple hours. I'm not a big knee-jerker. I would rather go with the safe thing, assume it's going against everything that I've ever thought of when I try to like break down and talk about the Eagles, to say that, yeah, Nick Foles should sit. We should move on from Nick Foles. We should look at Sudfeld. Maybe we should throw an absolute Hail Mary, try to get Colin Kaepernick, at least bring him in for a tryout, or Tony Romo. Hey, can we just have the ultimate, what reality are we living in, and try to get Tony Romo back? But Nick Foles should not be the starting quarterback. He has not done anything over the last 2 weeks that leads me to believe that he can do anything against a playoff caliber defense. We were playing for so long to get home field advantage because all of these teams that play indoors, the Saints, the Vikings, you have the Rams who play in warm weather, they are going to struggle in the cold weather of Philadelphia. And yeah, they are going to. There has not been, I'm going to finish it up, I have one positive from all this. But they're going to struggle. But our offense, our own quarterback is struggling in this cold weather. Like, it's like going against us as well that we have home field advantage. Like, hell, freaking, let's just give it up. Let's go play inside. Maybe Nick Foles with his little hands there. Maybe they're a little too chilly for him. He doesn't want to go Kurt Warner with the gloves. But yeah, man, it's like, yeah, it goes against everything just to say, bench Nick Foles, move on. But I think you got to, man. I just, it's going to make me sick to my stomach if we go with Nick Foles to start against whoever we end up playing, and it's the same performance that we saw against Dallas. It's the same performance that we saw against the Raiders. It's just like, what were you expecting? Were you expecting something different? We saw what he did. We saw what, after teams had a little bit of tape from the Giants game, they could just shut down Nick Foles. They were blitzing with different, getting him backpedaling, looks like Bambi on ice. Like, that's the whole thing. If Doug Peterson sticks with Nick Foles, and during the bye weeks and stuff, he gets him 100% coached up, ready to go, and he plays well, then there you go. That's why Doug Peterson deserves to be Coach of the Year. I would say most of us Eagle fans that don't want Nick Foles to start, we were wrong, and Doug Peterson is showing why he gets paid by this team to coach them and to make the personnel decisions. But if by whatever happens, Nick Foles is our starting quarterback for this playoff game, and it's exactly what we saw, man. It's going to be, you can't defend it. You're like, we know what he was doing. We saw what he was playing like, and you decided, yeah, you know, that still gives us the best chance to win the game. You know what I'm saying? I'm not, you know, it's still crazy to go with Nate Sudfeld, who's never officially started a game, saying he is our best option. But the proof is in the pudding. Nate Sudfeld played against the same defense today that Nick Foles did, and Sudfeld, with backups around him, looked much better. Much, much better than Nick Foles did with all of our starters that were playing in the game. So pretty much all of our starters minus maybe 2 or 3 guys on offense. I know Jai wasn't playing. Anyone else that wasn't playing? I don't think so. So, I don't know. That's definitely a topic for discussion that we'll definitely touch base on, because even though we lost, baby, we got that bye. So we're going to, I know, a little week off from the Eagles hype videos because we're going to be kicking our feet up, seeing whatever team comes in. I guess, you know, wishful thinking is, you know, another team has to play in the wild card round. Maybe an injury or something like that will balance out the playing field a little bit. But to end this video on a positive note, because we are finishing the season 13-3, a record that I thought was really beyond all expectations. What is the positive you can take? The only positive that I think we can take that gives us a little bit of confidence that we won't be one and done, which my gut says, and I would never put any money right now on the Philadelphia Eagles, that we're probably going to be one and done, unfortunately, is that no team has looked good in Philly. We have not looked good, but the Cowboys look terrible. The Raiders look terrible. The weather has affected both teams negatively. So you can at least go with confidence that whatever game happens, whatever team, be it the Rams, well, I don't think it'll be the Rams, but it could be the Rams. The Rams' explosive offense, you got the Saints' explosive offense, be it the Falcons, the Panthers, this and that. They're going to struggle too. No team has looked good in Philly in this cold weather. It's like, you know, record temperatures minus whatever. It's like throwing a rock. But that's probably the only positive I'm able to find out of this couple stretch games to end the season without Carson Wentz is at least his home field will make it an ugly game. And in an ugly game, the best defense usually does prevail. We do need to get some points. If we could settle for field goals, I'd be fine with that because the way the defense is playing, it's good. But yeah, that's pretty much the only positive I can find for you guys right now is that. But yeah, like I said, we'll definitely have another discussion. I made a video that came out a couple hours ago talking about Colin Kaepernick. We'll probably have a little bit more in-depth discussion later in the week, maybe the weekend, probably in place of my usual player grades video that comes out, or player hype and player grades videos that come out. I'll probably replace that with some playoff previews and talk about the Eagles. But that does it for me today, guys. Thank you for watching. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace